Warner Brothers CEO Zaslav himself says disappointing Suicide Squad release overshadowed its overall studio's financials, which is a funny way of saying this game was such a flop that it's making all of our financials for our studios look way worse than they actually are, which is bad. I mean, this is basically the CEO equivalent of being like, don't be mad at me, be mad at the game. During a financial presentation, David Zaslav said the studio division, which includes Warner Brothers Pictures, DC, Warner Brothers Television Group, and Warner Brothers Games, and New Line Cinema, saw a decrease in revenues compared to the previous year. Zaslav said this was mainly down to the difference between the successful release of Hogwarts Legacy last year and the, quote, disappointing release of the Suicide Squad game. Quote, Warner Brothers Discovery's great storytelling IP, including Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Superman, and many other parts of the DC universe, are largely underused, Zaslav said. We are hard at work fixing that. It's a core value and key advantage for us. We have the characters and the stories people love and yearn for everywhere in the world in every... Oh, I see. The stories people love and yearn for everywhere in the world. I thought he was saying that they yearned for it in the world. I was like, what? Unfortunately, the studio's Q1 financials were overshadowed by the tough comparison at games following the great performance of Hogwarts Legacy last year and the disappointing release of Suicide Squad in Q1 in our gaming group. Zaslav's comments were later echoed by Warner Brothers Discovery CFO Gunnar Weidenfels, who said the difference between both games' release had led to a, quote, $200 million impact to EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization during the first quarter. The reason why EBITDA is used in business is usually because it gives you a flatter understanding of the performance of things year over year and in different geographies. So, you know, if I'm trying to evaluate the performance of a game, for example, in 2024, and I'm trying to compare it to a game in 2022, taxes might have changed during those times. Interest rates might have changed during that time. And so if I was comparing it after all of that stuff is subtracted out of the profits or out of the revenue to give us profits, it might give you a skewed understanding of how the two things performed. But if you instead look at the raw performance before all of that's factored in, you can get a better idea of how they compare one-to-one. A $200 million impact to EBITDA. This could be, I mean, again, it's just very vague, but it's like, it could be that Hogwarts, you know, was up here, and then in comparison, Suicide Squad's down here, so it made $200 million less. When did Hogwarts Legacy launch last year? Does anyone remember the release date? It was February, like late February, I think? No, February 10th. If anything, Suicide Squad, I think, had an extra week or two. Because I'm trying to think, like, in the first month or two of Hogwarts Legacy, I think it would have made a good bit more. Based on our counts off of SteamDB and stuff, Suicide Squad maybe made like $50 to $75 million. It's really hard to gauge console performance and stuff, but they probably made, you know, $50 to $70 million on it, but they probably spent like $300 million on it. Either way, there's no way of twisting it. It's a big loss. I mean, it's a big loss. They did not get the money out of this they were hoping for. The game's release was less than ideal, with Weidenfels saying in February's financial briefing that its sales, quote, had fallen short of the company's expectations. Quote, this year, Suicide Squad, one of our key video game releases in 2024, has fallen short of our expectations since its release earlier in the quarter, he noted at the time. Quote, setting our games business up for a tough year-over-year comp in Q1. They're kind of shielded a little bit, and maybe this was part of the plan for releasing Suicide Squad when they did, because we know that they basically were scheduled, I believe, to release. Did they ever give a firm date? Suicide Squad, did they ever give a firm date for 2023? They did the little preview in like February of 2023 that was nuked, right? Everybody was like, what on earth is this crap? And they ended up, I mean, it was so poorly received, they ended up basically delaying the game indefinitely, which was kind of crazy, but it happened. So because of that, one thing that actually would make sense now is that they delayed it until the similar time frame as Hogwarts Legacy launched a year later in a separate financial year, so that they could cover up its floppishness by saying, well, yeah, it didn't perform quite to our expectations, but it looks way worse than it actually is because last year we had Hogwarts Legacy, which was so exceptionally good. It just makes this look worse in comparison. Even a really good game and a well-received game would have struggled to go head to head against Hogwarts Legacy, which is true because Hogwarts Legacy was freakishly successful. But that might have been a bit of a clever thing. People were kind of baffled, myself included. How on earth are they delaying it a year? What are they going to do during that time? Well, maybe they were delaying it to Q1 specifically so that they could point to Hogwarts Legacy to explain losses away. That could make sense. That could do it. Because otherwise it just doesn't make sense what they were doing. I mean, even then it's still baffling that they delayed it almost a year and have almost no content to show for it. Like, it makes you really wonder what the game would have looked like if it launched in May, because the game we got almost a year later, still super buggy, had no content. It was just shocking. It was crazy. If it had released in May 2023, I think the plan was to have Hogwarts Legacy overshadow the failure of it because it was received so poorly they pulled it and screwed it up. And with all this, it's also about just explaining it to investors. Like, you don't want investors to think that you're incompetent or screwed something up that you've spent hundreds of millions of dollars on. So if you can make it sound a little bit better by saying, oh no, it wasn't like a total failure, it just looks really bad because we had such a successful year last year. So you're kind of talking out both sides of your mouth. You're like, yeah, we're so good at it. Last year was so good that yeah, we like it looks bad, but it isn't. We promise. When it really is that bad. But that's the thing, is I just don't know. I don't know if investors are digging that deep into it. Already people are just generally fed up with Warner Brothers, like, as a stock. It's just really, really rough. He took my thing. Red flag.